There is a quiet hum that runs beneath the surface of everything. Maybe since the beginning of COVID pandemic, maybe before that. A feeling that something big is on the horizon. It's like the way air feels just before storm, tense with anticipation, charged with the electricity of thunderstorms. Politics, economy, science, and technology, culture and ourselves, all are floating over a slow and steady stream, but the sense of where we are heading is still hard to put into words. All we know is a big change is happening under our feet. Hello, and welcome to our three-part series about the shifts happening in all aspects of our lives. Over the next 20 minutes or so, I want to craft a new lens for you. A lens that can show you what's happening on a grand scale. A lens that can help you to position yourself correctly beforehand. And this is the lens of paradigms. In this first part, we will try to define and understand what's a paradigm, what is a shift, and briefly look into the earlier historical paradigm shifts. And in the second part, we will start with the mercantile economy and try to understand the fundamental shifts that created our modern time paradigms. And in the last one, the third part, we will try to explore the current paradigm shifts we are experiencing and look for the ways to detect shifts when we are floating over them. My goal is by the end of this mini series, you will not only make sense of this quiet hum, but also discover how to harness these emerging paradigms in your own life to take your chance to reshape the way you live and reconnect. And one bonus goal is to help you understand systems better because on a parallel series we have started to train our minds for system thinking, and paradigms are one of the fundamental blocks of intangible parts in any socio-technical system. So settle in, grab a snack, maybe a notebook if you're like me who likes to jot down ideas, and get ready to look at the world through brand new lenses. Before talking about shifting paradigms, we need to clarify what is a paradigm. Simply put, a paradigm is a set of assumptions and frameworks used collectively within a society that shapes how they perceive reality and make sense of it. Those sets of assumptions and frameworks are almost always based on the known knowns. Those are the things you are aware of and understand, and sometimes known unknowns, which are things you're aware that you don't know. We have talked about this concept in part 2 of our system thinking series. You can watch that after this video, and I will put the link down below and in the iCard as well. Alright, this term paradigm shift was popularized by Thomas Kuhn in the context of scientific revolutions, like how Copernicus overturned the Earth-centric model of the universe to solar-centric one, or how Einstein's relativity changed the Newtonian physics. These paradigm shifts in science always followed a breakthrough and reorganized a set of assumptions and frameworks based on these new facts and these new known knowns within the realm of science, obviously. This significance of these breakthroughs lie in their ability to initiate a paradigm shift. If the kick is forceful enough, we see the current paradigm slowly replaced by the new paradigm. So, what we call as the shift is the process of assumption and framework replacement across broader academic society. But paradigms are not just for science, they color every aspect of human life: culture, politics, economics, science and technology, personal identity, and all have their own guiding assumptions and frameworks, and all interact with each other, and all undergo radical changes over time. Because of this complex nature of paradigms, I visualize paradigm shifts as the currents in the oceans, pushing icebergs to different seas and causing them to melt down. As the one melts down, another one is created at the end of the other seas. If you watch Unfolding the Only Skill That Will Matter in the AI Economy video, you might realize that I'm talking about the iceberg model. For the newcomers, you can find the link in the iCard and description below. Though, let me briefly explain and refresh your memory on what is an iceberg model and how paradigm shifts are connected to this idea. Iceberg model is a simple model that systems thinkers use to cascade down reasoning behind seemingly irrelevant events. Just like an iceberg, what we see as the events happening in our lives are basically the tip of that iceberg, visible to our eyes. And just below that tip, under the surface of the water, we have the patterns and trends, not easily visible, but if you have trained eyes, you can tacitly know there is more. And below those trends, you will see the systems that created those patterns. And if you go even deeper, what you will find at the bottom of the iceberg is the mental models that guided those systems to be designed that way. Let's break down the iceberg model with a real world example. Imagine your product team has just launched a new feature and a couple of bugs popped up. This is a single event. Your immediate reaction might be to fix them, but if you want to prevent similar issues in the future, you need to dig deeper. Looking at past releases, you notice a recurring trend. Every feature rollout comes with bugs. This is a pattern, and going further, you discover that teams don't incorporate testing before releases. That is, quality assurance happens only afterwards. And on top of that, tight deadlines pressure teams to ship quickly. These are structural issues within the system. And at an even deeper level, you surveyed people and found out that teams prioritize meeting deadlines over ensuring quality. This belief, this mental model, is reinforced by managers who set strict timelines, while teams assume that they have little say in pushing back. So, this iceberg, with many other similarly structured icebergs from other companies, is actually in the sea of fast business culture paradigm. This is a business paradigm that assumes speed is the ultimate competitive advantage. In fast culture, success is measured by how quickly products ship, how teams iterate, and how efficiently companies respond to the market changes. The underlying assumption is that being first to market outweighs quality, sustainability, or long term stability because first to market yields high returns, and then you can invest some of those returns to stabilize the winning features of your product. This paradigm isn't limited to tech teams, it pervades modern businesses as a whole. The faster something is produced, the more valuable it seems. Companies reward short-term wins, rapid releases, viral engagement, and instant feedback loops because CEOs and leadership team in general are rewarded for short-term wins. Slow, deliberate processes are seen as inefficiencies, and those who push for deeper thinking for long-term planning risks at being labeled as bottlenecks. Actually, this sea of fast culture paradigm is just one of the inner seas in the grand business paradigm sea of growth, efficiency, productivity obsession, which assumes growth is the most important KPI and it's generally achieved by increasing efficiency and productivity. But that's another day's topic to discuss in more details. If you don't want to miss what's coming, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell button now. I believe you get the idea that what is a paradigm and what is a shift. And in this context, where these icebergs float are the paradigm seas, and those paradigms help constructing mental models of icebergs with their sets of assumptions and frameworks. As a matter of fact, that grand business paradigm is just a part of the broader ocean of economy, and based on my perspective, I have identified four more core paradigm oceans for our anthropocentric world. This total of five core paradigms, five core oceans, revolve around the economy that sustains us, our sense of individuality, the culture we inhabit, the energy powering our lives, and obviously the political structures that govern everything. And all these five C's have intersectional areas and they are all interconnected with the deep ocean streams, which are the paradigm shifts. So, how do these paradigm shifts start? As we said earlier, all shifts start with some form of breakthrough, just like happens in science. But how can we see that in our history? How can we find them and pinpoint them? In the first part of our mini series on AI economy, we have talked about historical transitions of economy systems. And in that series, we had the perspective of dominant problem, core solution, and emerging problems because of the core solutions dynamics in these economies. And if you haven't watched already, you can find it in the description as well, just like the other videos I have mentioned earlier. And all those transitions were actually some form of paradigm shifts. In this first part of Paradigm Shift series, I want to add a new dimension to that problem solution and emerging problem perspective. The first model we had was subsistence economy. Their dominant problem was survival, and their solution was just like any other animal, right? Hunting, gathering, and foraging, wandering all across the continents for a better geography. Then, by the end of last ice age, some groups experimented with horticulture practices to increase their chances of survival with somewhat forcible food production, and this was the early sign of upcoming agricultural revolution. While economic activities were shifting towards agricultural practices, their set of assumptions and frameworks for how things work was also shifting. Let's take their relationship to the land, for example. The paradigm shift here is from seeing land as a shared environment to be traversed to viewing land as a resource to be managed, defended, and owned. In the subsistence economy, hunter gatherers typically moved with seasons, following their migration routes and gathering wild plants. And land was not seen as owned in the modern sense, rather, people had traditional roads or territories recognized by all other tribes, and those territories often overlapped in fluid ways. But as we shift towards and move towards agricultural economy, humans began to see land as something to cultivate, invest in, and protect. This was a major shift of how we see world around us, and probably had created the first concept of fixed property and territory. And that possibly lead to the notion of belonging to a specific place rather than roaming widely. And possibly this new sense of ownership could have accelerated the competition for resources and land, which could lead to alliances, conflicts, and more formalized leadership or authority structures. And another paradigm shift was about their perception of time. And with that new perception, we saw the coming of planning ahead, where paradigm shifted from living in day to day or seasonal cycles to strategizing long term resource management and future planning, right? In the subsistence economy, hunter gatherers generally lived in what some anthropologists call immediate return economy, with time horizons based on daily needs, seasonal availability of resources, and migratory patterns of animals. Their sense of time was strongly cyclical, tied to natural phenomena like day, night, or moon phases. But as we moved towards agricultural economy, farmers had to plant crops and tend them and wait months for harvesting, which introduced a more delayed return economy. Agricultural life required planning, foresighting, and saving surplus for future scarcity, and this likely expanded the concept of time from purely cyclical nature-based rhythms to more long-range linear orientation. We can also speculate about paradigm shifts in religious views as well during this transition into agricultural economy, because as we mastered to bend and control water and land for our needs, and domesticated animals and crops, and intervene more and more on natural cycles, these achievements might have triggered the idea that we are superior to other living creatures. So gods should be like us, maybe bigger than us, which might have resulted in living shamanic and animal centric belief systems and starting to build anthropomorphic gods like the Skyfather and Mother Earth. So This one paradigm shift in the economy from hunting and gathering to agriculture started a chain reaction in the other oceans. Self perception gained a new dimension. Subsistence economy era forced people building their identity around these small tribes. But mastering and owning land in the agriculture era possibly added the dimension of identifying yourself with the land you own on top of the tribal identity. Culture transformed mainly in the hands of religion, from shamanic animism to anthropomorphic deities, featuring certain aspects of our newly developed skills on water, land, scribing, animal and crop domestication, etc. And political structures also transformed, eventually from tribal leadership to kingship of small city states. And in some of these cities, we saw new management classes was born, like scribes, clergy, and military roles. The slow shift from hunting and gathering to small horticulture practices accelerated the shift to full-fledged agriculture economy when animal domestication and water management become a breakthrough in energy paradigm because the required energy to perform farming was met by animals and water, and we no longer depended solely on human muscle. This one small breakthrough in understanding crop cultivation triggered a complete change in all sets of assumptions and frameworks and changed the streams of paradigm motions. But as we discussed during the Birth of AI Economy series, there was an emerging problem for agriculture economy. They are maintaining consistent production, managing surplus, and managing growing population. To solve this social organizational problem, societies tried many different systems, but one of them became dominant, the tributary economy system. And we saw the rise of early period empires with their redistributive mechanisms and crop taxations, creating new classes, serfs, and many new roles. And this period was also heavily defined by the religious narratives, which helped shaping societies. This political structure shift also impacted the other core oceans as well. Culture transformation to class formation, which started during agricultural economy, dominated the cultural set of assumptions. We also saw the rise of alliances as a new form of cooperation to exploit resources. And this class formation impacted the self-perception paradigm. People now identify themselves based on their social and economic roles and generally behaved accordingly. And the writing system allowed ruling elite to write down their self-perception and sometimes merge themselves with the religious narratives. But one of the most dramatic paradigm shifts happened in the economy. The growing population and size of empires and trade between them, combined with the mental shift from immediate return to delayed return, formed a perception of debt and redistribution. Accounting for what is produced by whom and distributed to whom made debt and distribution traceable. Therefore, social relations between groups who do not know each other formed over debt mechanisms, which possibly helped the sense of society to grow even further. The reciprocal exchange mechanisms, which is a residual paradigm from subsistence economy and which is still with us today, become limited only between people and groups who know each other. As the empires grew and trade became complicated over the debt and redistribution mechanisms, we saw the invention of money, especially in the form of valuable metals like silver and gold coins, or sometimes in the form of debt issuing papers like in China, to facilitate the exchange among different groups within the society and outside of the society. This new debt and money-centered paradigm of tributary economy era also had impacted back to culture and political structures toward the last days of the tributary economy, this time affecting legal structures and handling debt and creating a new form of social elites through merchants and bankers. This grand paradigm shift in economy altered the set of assumptions so deeply that we still have many of them, like we establish modern law practices over ancient Roman law practices. This debt paradigm also allowed wealth accumulation virtually and undermined the tributary economy's redistributive capability and paved the road for another great paradigm shift in our history, the mercantile economy, which cemented the core idea of debt equals money in Western world. In the next part, we will dive into how mercantile economy once again kicked new paradigms and created a chain of reactions forming our modern worldview. For this first part of the series, I want you to understand the main perspective here. First, paradigms are a set of assumptions and frameworks we use collectively to craft our own mental models and therefore the systems we live. And they are kind of axioms in theories and have their own hierarchy. That hierarchy is built over five core paradigms. They are our sense of individuality, the culture we inhabit, the economy that sustains us, the energy powering our lives, and the political structures that govern us. And all the other socio-technical systems reside in the conjunctions of these paradigms, like science and technology paradigm forms between economy, culture, and energy, or grand business paradigm resides inside that same intersection as well. And they have also intersections with science and technology paradigms. Some paradigm shifts are sudden, like technological breakthroughs, while others unfold slowly, like cultural mindsets. But one thing is certain, it always follows a breakthrough. And if some big shift starts in one of these core paradigms, it affects all the other oceans and drifts them towards a new set of assumptions. Before closing, I want to denote that there are countless paradigms you can find as you dig down, especially when you look to historical developments. And this video series do not intend to cover all of them, which is impossible, but it is a trial to highlight some important paradigms we had and how they shifted, because we all know that the reality is much more complicated than what I presented here. So, until next time, stay curious and take care.